So
Good.
obviously, all of you guys have tuned in here, and an incredible amount of you tuned in here because you have some sort of interest or learning into what exactly is direct mail and why we believe you need to be betting heavily into direct mail in 2024. So, before we start, I think, Michael, if you want to take a second to talk about an offer people can't refuse.
Yeah. If you get to the end of this and you like what you hear and you're interested, we set up a special link, postpilot.com/obvi, where you can get a special incentive to launch your first campaign. We'll make it super easy for you, but hopefully by the end, you'll see why you think it's a good idea.
Awesome. Love it. So let's get started. So myself, why are we here and who am I? So my name's Ronak Shah. I'm founder and CEO of Obvi. Obvi is a women's health and wellness collagen brand. It's focused around spreading products that have collagen in it for your hair, skin, nails, and beauty goals, but also some really cool weight loss products that were focused also around collagen and weight loss at the same time for making sure that you look good and feel good. We've built the brand over the course of now 4.5 years, coming up on 5 years, actually. We've done a little north of $80 million in revenue till date. This year alone, we'll do a little over 30 million in revenue. And what's really cool is we have a small team. And so we heavily rely on a lot of tools and a lot of services. We're only 12 people. And so we're always looking for the next way to hack a lot of people's favorite words, acquisition and retention. And that's the core focuses on most businesses today, figuring out funnels in both. And that's a lot of time is being spent on our end, finding ways to do that. So let's throw it back to when acquiring customers was as easy as run a Facebook ad campaign, have some good creatives, and boom, you're going to get sales. And, if you think about, what do you think about before bed, which is, how do I acquire more customers? How do I get more profitability? How do I retain them longer, right? If you're not thinking about one of these things before you go to bed, you probably have it set up really well. And I'm jealous, but these are common things that are on people's mind. And it's always on our mind. And so we're always, like I said, trying to figure out the next way to do to be able to solve our issues in either acquisition and retention. So for us, I think what was really cool is we've been such Facebook ads, TikTok, Google ads, like I think front runners, right? And like, hey, this is the only way to do it. And I think the big part of what we learned was, well, are there methodologies that could help solve the same questions that we're trying to answer? And that's where we were able to find direct mail. And I'm excited to go into this because you kind of get to see how we actually utilize direct mail. So on our end, we had, what we'll kind of get to on the agenda is two of like our biggest mistakes with Obvi. Why I like direct mail, how we're using direct mail to increase retention rate, plus a behind the curtains look at our stats from using PostPilot for direct mail, how we're going to be using direct mail for our new customer acquisition and retail strategy, and then resource allocation, ROI expectations, and all the fun stuff, which it's important to talk about the resource allocation because a lot of people, when they hear about something new and how that could work or not, the first thing they're like, I don't even know if I have time to do this, right? So we're going to jump into these things right away. Cool. So let's jump into my first fuck up. Trusting in our product. And I know it sounds bad, but kind of hear me out on what I mean by that. So 90% of our attention went on the marketing side to Google, Facebook, and TikTok. And I'm sure in the crowd right now, there is plenty of you guys that can relate to this, right? Which is most of your attention is probably going into somewhere in these departments, right? And you're just testing out a bunch of creative, you're trying to launch new products, and you're trying to make it platform friendly, right? And I think one of the problems that we had was we focused on acquisition, but we never focused on retention because we just assumed that retention is just going to work and it's just going to be there. And, oh, we're selling a great product that people will just come back and buy. And I think the second mess up that we had, we talked about two big fuck ups, pardon my French, but the second one was concentration risk. And what I mean by that is like, we had a lot of our eggs in very, very few baskets. And we never talked about the age-old problem of diversification and needing to diversify, right? I think in natural instinct is to focus on the highest performers and not so much think about, well, if you had more of the smaller performers, just on a volume level, you'll be able to get to kind of a similar performance from one high performer, right? And so I think where I want to jump into is on the meta focus end. All of our top of funnel traffic came from Meta, and up until I'd say when we started testing out direct mail and a couple of other platforms, I'd say about 95% of our top of funnel traffic was literally Meta. And you look at, even just from our influencer dashboard, right? A lot of what we did was sending out products, and we'd get people to post and we'd get people to talk about it, but it all still came down to, well, we'll run ads, right? We'll take influencers and we'll run ads behind them, and we'll do, whatever it takes on that end as well. And I think that's where like we realize we're spending a lot of money on these influencers, but we didn't really understand what we were getting out of them on a consistent basis. And I think this is where like, I'll jump into the importance around, direct mail and where we got there. But before I get there and go deep into this, because I think it's important to talk about when we looked at acquisition and our funneling. So before I jump into, the direct mail piece, if you look at how a lot of us are setting up just acquisition, top of funnel, and even how we're thinking retention, right? We have a few platforms. I'm going to keep talking about Google, Facebook, and TikTok for now, because that's what we're all used to. A lot of us look at acquisition and say, all right, we're going to pay to acquire XYZ amount of customers. Okay. And from those customers, what we're expecting is hoping for first order profitability, right? And then we're hoping for a good quality customer that will come back and purchase. Okay. And I think whether you're driving through Meta, Google, or TikTok, or you're driving through influencers, like I mentioned, that we tested out with larger influencers, the goal is obviously acquisition at the most efficient rate. Now, where that kind of screwed it up for us was when we were going down that journey, we started to realize like the retention piece of it. You have email, you have SMS, we also have an app, so you have some push notifications, right? What we realized was those three platforms were just almost commoditized to the point where everyone used that as a retention strategy. Everybody sent an email to their customer after they bought on Meta or Google or TikTok, or everyone sent an SMS when there was a promo or whatnot, right? And so now if everyone's doing it, and an average customer, right? An average customer is typically shopping from anywhere between 5 to 8 brands a month. If you do the math on how many emails and text messages they're getting on a weekly basis, even push notifications if they have the app from the company, it's starting to become to a point where they're getting inundated with that. And this is where I wanted to segue into when we started looking at the retention side. What caught our attention was direct mail and why I like direct mail. So I'm going to jump in there a little bit. Unless, of course, there's any questions or anything before that. But really wanted to set the stage of we're all conditioned to run acquisition a certain way, which is these platforms are supposed to give us X amount of sales and hoping that it's profitable and hoping that, we're able to run it in a methodology that, will get us customers with high LTV. The high LTV, we're hoping that, they'll just buy again because we'll send them an email and whatnot. But that methodology is what's broken. That theory, I think, is age-old theory. And I think what's really cool about direct mail is something that is old age in its way, right? Because direct mail, you're like, oh, that's like newspaper time. But it's taking that old age methodology and saying, wait, there is a new way of approaching it, because now you're taking the synthesis of what we're going to go into now, the synthesis you have online, and building it here. So let's jump into why we believe direct mail has been incredible, why I love it, and some of the really cool things that have come out of it. So one of the really cool things about direct mail, right? Even compared to an email or SMS or even some of the ads, right? You get to really create wow experiences. So very few brands are sending out direct mail. To get to create that immediate wow experience, right? You have high efficient incrementality. There's 0% chance of landing in spam because mailboxes do not have a inbox and a spam box, right? It is just one mailbox, right? And it runs on autopilot. So I'm actually going to break down each of these real quick because I don't want it to just say something and it just goes over people's head. But let's talk about the first point. Very few brands are sending out direct mail. The truth is, there's just not a lot of brands doing this because of the exact factor. The elephant in the room is, what the heck? Direct mail? Like, who checks mail anymore? Okay. The truth is, everyone still checks mail. Think about it. You've checked mail this week. I've checked mail this week. Everyone still checks mail. So although you may not want to check it, or although you may not want to utilize everything in it because there's some junk or there's whatever, you still check it. Okay. That in itself, the fact that there aren't enough people thinking about it that way is you are going to get, which is this one part of it, 0% chance landing in spam, right? Everyone's going to get to at least see what you're sending them. Whereas email, you look at it and we're like, oh yeah, 40, 50, 60% open rate. What happened to the other 30, 40% of people? They won't see it. SMS, most people see it, but not many people click on it or take action, etc. But it's also pretty fragmented and you don't get to create any wow experience, right? So now when you look at what you get to do with direct mail, first of all, everyone's going to open it because everyone checks mail. Number two, there is no spam, so you're going to actually land in exactly where discovery happens. Number three, with what creatives I'm going to get to show you that we've done at Obvi, it's pretty incredible the experiences you can build and showcase. And honestly, it even sticks out in half of those white envelopes people are sending, right? High efficient incrementality, you're going to love the results I'm going to go over that we've seen with PostPilot. And the other amazing part, which I didn't even get to write here, is the amount of money that you have to put into testing this is a superior amount less than testing an ad on Meta or Google or TikTok even. And so when you look at all of these options of, hey, wait, not too much competition, really going to have to get to cater the experience, going to get really good incrementality. I have 0% chance of someone not seeing this, and it can run on autopilot. All right, cool. This is worth checking out, right? Hopefully got your attention. So now let's jump in a little bit more. Cool. How we're using direct mail to increase our retention rate and more of a behind the scenes look. So this is where I'm going to go a little bit more detailed about what we're talking about. And let's jump in a little bit. Cool. So here's postcard number one, right? What's really awesome here is if you kind of get to look at, I'll just bring out the points for you guys so you get to, so you guys get to experience it, is this was a postcard that we created, and it was under our automated win-back campaign, okay? So what does automated win-back campaign mean, right? These are people who hadn't bought from us in over 90 days. So they bought from us 90 days or way before then, okay? And we were trying to get them to buy again because they had made 2 purchases with us. So it's not just like someone who bought once and just never bought again, right? These are people who had made 2+ purchases with us and they hadn't purchased in 90 days. What's really cool is, first of all, making that segment, PostPilot connects to your Shopify account automatically. And so you're able to make that segment nearly within seconds, or their team will help you with it. So made the segment because we're like, okay, yeah, this makes sense. Like if someone bought from us 2 or more times, that means they probably kind of like the product, but they didn't buy in the last 90 days, but we've sent them email, SMS, and push notifications. Well, then let's try postcard because high intent rate, kind of weird behavior that they haven't bought recently. Maybe it's just we have to get them to a different way, right? And so I think one of the cool parts here is like when we show you get and get the results here, right? I think it would be really interesting for you guys to see, oh wow, what's going to come out of it. But Michael, I'd love to see if you want to kind of talk about like even just the segmenting part of it, which when you think about direct mail, you typically don't talk about like segmenting and parts like that. But maybe you want to cover a little bit on the segment end.
Yeah, sure. And perfect. You pulled up a really interesting report that you can see in the PostPilot app. When you can plug in your store, you all can do this today. It's really enlightening. What this chart that Ron just pulled up shows you is the time it typically takes a customer to make subsequent purchases. And what this chart shows is that of any customer that makes a second purchase from Obvi, 80% of them have done so within the first 90 days. If they don't come back within the first 90 days, you're now increasingly at risk of losing that customer forever. You have less than a 20% chance of ever seeing that customer again. So exactly as Ron was saying, this is what you use to help identify where you need to take these actions to make sure that you get those customers to come back before you risk losing them for good. And because PostPilot's natively integrated with Shopify, we can create these segments super fast, super easy. It's integrated with Klaviyo too, so you can even sync with Klaviyo segments. And it's all happening in real time. So this isn't like you need to wait and batch a whole bunch of customers and send this campaign out once a month. Think of it like Klaviyo for direct mail, where you create an automated flow. And literally, like Ron makes a purchase, he goes 90 days. We don't see Ron again. We've emailed him a bunch of times. We've sent him SMS. He hasn't come back. On day 90, a card is being triggered in real time to Ron. That's like, Ron, it's time to come back. And here's 20% off because we're at risk of losing you for good. So that's really the key here. And it just, as Ron said, if you're relying on just those digital channels, you're missing really a majority of folks because they're just not engaging with those other channels.
That's right. Great explanation there, Michael. And I think what's key there to understand as well, guys, is like that one key point, which kind of really sold us too, and on the idea of you're right, which is the further away someone gets repurchasing, right? The truth that's happening there is it's not that, oh, you know what, maybe they'll buy on the next email or maybe they'll buy on the next SMS. Or is it, the truth is the affinity they will have to the brand is getting further and further away, and that is just the matter of fact. And it could be because of increasing competition. Maybe they're seeing something else. Maybe they're just distracted. Whatever it may be, there could be hundreds of reasons why it's happening. But if you don't think about other ways to get their attention, you're just at risk of losing it. And now think about how much money we've spent acquiring these customers, right? Some of us are paying $50, $60, $70, $80, $90, $100 to acquire a customer. Yet when it comes to retain them, right, we fire off a couple emails, a couple SMS, and we kind of say, all right, well, they churn, and it's like, you just spent $100, right? Think about a pair of shoes, right? If you bought a pair of shoes for $100, are you just going to wear them one or two times? And if they got ruined or you couldn't find them, you're just gonna be like, all right, whatever, I'll just buy another one? Probably not, right? You're probably going to look for it. You're going to care, right? So care about your customers too.
And the great thing about products like Obvi consumable products is once you get that person back on track, as Ron said, there's a million reasons why something might have happened in their life that caused them to stop purchasing. But once you get them back, especially with consumable products, they don't just make that one purchase. They get back into their routine, and now they're back on their regular, 30, 60-day replenishment cycle. So they're making multiple subsequent purchases, super high value to reactivate those repeat purchasers.
Yeah, Michael, maybe you can also just comment on that point, because again, great call out there is when you talk about like people getting back now, kind of almost getting back on the saddle, right? And buying again, right? Is when you see somebody that is coming back on title, especially after seeing like a postcard, right, or getting direct mail, would you agree? And I think this is at least how I feel about it and how I look at it is like, if you're now have a affinity to the brand and you bought it because you saw a direct mail, right? Your attention almost comes back in a different way, because you may have shut out email and SMS because you may have just like drowned it out, but you may have still been wanting this brand, or maybe it was just out of sight, out of mind, because you drowned out so much of the noise that we're also used to getting, which is email, SMS, push notification, etc. When you get direct mail too, it's almost like, oh wow, like I kind of had just thought of, maybe I forgot about this brand, and I think that it almost creates maybe a different type of customer too, because they're not coming from the most usual funnels, kind of just all right, itching to buy and doing that. I don't know if that makes sense, but I feel that giving that additional new funnel to come in through it almost also invigorates the customer base.
No, you're exactly right. There's actually a couple studies that speak to what you're talking about. One is that direct mail is perceived more like a gift than whereas digital ads tend to be more perceived as an interruption. People like getting a piece of tangible mail from a brand that they know and have done business with. And then the other thing is, it's exactly what you said. There's a lot of data that supports that customers that are acquired or reactivated using direct mail spend more and have higher LTVs than customers acquired using almost any other channel. And you could kind of think about this logically or rationally, right? Like somebody who sort of buys an impulse buy off of TikTok is typically going to be a lower quality, lower LTV customer than somebody who gets like a piece of tangible mail and is engaged with the brand and then makes a purchase as a result of receiving that.
Makes complete sense. And thanks for those additional insights. I think what I'll go into next is kind of talking about the more tangible results that we got from the campaign you guys just saw as an example. So first of all, we got 25% of recipients reactivating, and I'm saying it with so much emphasis because it's so important to understand this. 25% of people who had not bought from us in over 90 days, okay, but had purchased with us at least 2 times or more. These are people who, if we just kept emailing and texting them, I don't know, maybe a few of them would have bought again, but most of them were not, and they were showing clear signs. But the minute we sent them a postcard, 25% of them reactivated. They repurchased. And like from that point on, it was like a whole new world for us. From there, we drove 6 figures in additional revenue from this one campaign. And I always look at the dashboard with PostPilot, and I'm like, it's incredible to be able to say this was revenue that I probably was not going to get had I continued down the same funnels that I was going. And I think that part is where you have to really think about how are we going to diversify. And if you haven't tried something like this, I think this is where it comes to, you know what? Let me take a cohort of people that should be buying again, haven't bought, right? The behavior, the bridge in the middle is the behavior, haven't bought, but should be. Let me see if I get them through a different funnel, will their action and behavior be different? Postcard number 2, another exciting one. Look at this experience, right? I'm just going to look at the visuals for a second here before I go into the breaking it down. Like, obviously, you can tell we sent this during Black Friday, but just think about getting this, all right? Physical copy of this, right? In your mail, and you're flipping through your white envelopes, and now you stop with this, right? Product, offer, Black Friday, free gifts, call out, 30%. Within probably 6 to 9 seconds, you've now taken in so much, right? And you almost have like a party in your hands. And the great part is, this is pretty much the exact same design we sent an email, but you're going to see that through your digital screen, right? There's nothing spectacular about it. And I think that's what makes this part really, really cool and different is the experience is a little bit underrated and not even talked about. But so let's break this one down. This was another automated win-back campaign with this time, it was a BFCM sales period focus, right? We built up the anticipation for new products plus free gift and who we sent it to. So these are people, again, who this time hadn't purchased between 90 days and 1 year, but had made 2+ purchases. Okay. So similar, but just a little bit more elongated time frame. So the why we did it, you guys get it, right? Look at how many emails just within a 6 email snapshot here that were going out at the same time as when we sent an email. This didn't mean we didn't send an email. I would never suggest don't send emails once you start doing direct mail, but look at the amount of noise you have to try to cut through. Everyone's using emojis, everyone's using pre-header text, everyone's using really cool subject lines, and everyone's trying A/B testing. So again, remember, features in email and SMS have commoditized themselves. So what you think you're doing and being clever and different, don't stop doing that because you should, because you'll cut through some noise. But what was once innovative because you were A/B testing and you were trying new things and new features were coming out, have now in a way kind of commoditized, right? Everyone can do it. A new brand can do it, and a brand that is 100 years old can do it, right? So we really, really wanted to focus on getting the attention of the customer, especially during a time to like Black Friday, where everyone is pushing the shop, right? And I think the big piece here, getting into the hands of the customer, the experience in my mind, right? How I think about it as from a brand founder and even like consumer for brands, it's like this almost becomes like that invitation, kind of like what Michael talked about too. Is like it's almost like this invitation, right? That you get before you go to like a wedding or before you go to experience something. It's almost like, oh, cool, like you're inviting me back to your brand or you're inviting me to your brand. Let me go check it out. You know what? It seems personal. It seems like you took effort to send me this. Well, thank you, right? Worked again. So let's jump into the results for this one because it's absolutely spectacular. We drove over 30K in revenue, 400+ orders, a 5.5% conversion rate. I mean, I don't even get that conversion on my website or on a regular basis. We sent out about 8,000 between this one segment that we sent, and we spent $3,800, right? I think it was like a 9-something X return on ad spend, right? And not even ad spend, on mail spend, I guess you can call it, right? Do you guys have that ROMS, return on mail spend? But what's really cool here is, sorry, 8.27. That's my math. I was trying to do mental math when I had the math in front of me. 8.27 ROAS, which I think put the ROAS aside. Obviously, that's incredible, and nothing can take that over. But the more important part is there was a chance that I was not going to ever get this revenue to begin with, right? When you actually think of that metric, I don't know what that is called, like, ghost revenue, right? That's what I think I really acquired here. Revenue that was not going to be present. And I think obviously, and you can do that and acquire it at incredible efficiency, like an 8.2 ROAS, obviously more power to the platform, right? So I think the other piece that I want to jump into, and I definitely would love, Michael, for you to comment around this feature set, because I know it's a extremely powerful one, but it's using mail match to convert warm leads into buyers. Michael, do you want to maybe touch on at least the premise of where this created and how this kind of got started?
Yeah, sure. So we talked a lot about retention and reactivation, right? So targeting existing customers that we're not reaching via our other channels and then getting them to come back and make subsequent purchases. But Devin also asked this in chat, how do we start moving up the funnel into acquisition? And so we usually take our approach is typically start lower in the funnel. Especially if you're new to direct mail, you haven't done it before, there's lots of easy wins to start there on retention, and then work your way up the funnel from there. So the next step is sort of retargeting. And we can do this with direct mail. We have two features. One is called Mail Match, and that takes your email subscribers, people who've opted into your list but never purchased from you. So you don't have their physical address. We can match about 70% of those people to physical postal addresses and then retarget them with a postcard. So for example, they sign up for your list, they go through your email welcome sequence. Say your welcome sequence is 4 emails over 7 days. They don't convert by the end of that sequence. Trigger a card at the end of that sequence to get them to come and get off the fence and come by. Because just like retention, the longer they go without taking action, the less likely you are to ever see them again or have them take that action. So a great tool to get people off the fence. I know Obvi's done great with Mail Match. And here's an example of a card we actually just redesigned special, for you guys. Dropped a few new card designs that we did into the deck here. That was one for Mail Match. And then Site Match is actually putting a pixel on your site and identifying anonymous browsers to your website who, again, have not purchased from you, and in this case, haven't opted into your email list either. So we can actually identify people who are browsing your website, about 30% of those folks, and we can apply other criteria to that traffic to say, like, well, we want to make sure that they've spent a certain amount of time on the site, that they visited certain pages on your site, things that show that they're engaged with your brand, but they're not converting. And so again, this is a way to get back in front of them. We can trigger a card to go out to them. And this is one of our newer capabilities. We trigger a card to go out to them and retarget them again, because you don't have a great way to reach them otherwise. There's some retargeting you can do, through Meta, but like with cookies and all of these things going away, it's just getting harder and harder to reach these people. But again, you've already paid to get these people to your site.
Hey.
And so they've demonstrated intent and engagement with your brand already. So they're a warm prospect, but then they leave. And if you don't convert them, you're just like throwing that money and effort away. So this is a great way to get those folks, again, off the fence and try and get them to convert.
Yeah. And I think just honing more into that one detail of like, we are all paying money to get these people to either come to our site, look at our ads, potentially add to cart, hopefully initiate checkout, and ideally buy, right? And if they're taking all of those actions and steps and they have bought, right? It's like we almost completely sometimes just don't care what happens after. Yet we need them to stay aboard and buy more so that the health of the business, the health of the unit economics, and the LTV and the CAC to LTV metrics are all in our favor. And I think that's where Mail Match, Site Match, and a lot of the tools you guys are creating has just been so powerful. And I know even on the lookalike prospecting, it's almost like you guys are building a meta ads manager within doing direct mail, it's such a innovative and creative way to look at direct mail, right? Because we've all been so used to like, oh, well, cool. What are you going to send a postcard? But it's so much deeper when you can realize like, oh, wow, you can segment, you can do mail match, you can look at what parts of your list needs help in terms of reacquiring customers, re-engaging, or with the lookalike prospecting. And I'll let you comment some more, Michael, but I think this has been an awesome tool for us, which is like taking our best customers, coming to you guys and saying, hey, I want more of these type of customers. They may have never heard of Obvi, and that's okay, but take the characteristic matchings that you guys can, take the data matching that you guys can, and give me more of these type of people. And then let's create a really cool experience where if they see that something like, oh, join the collagen revolution, you're like, oh, wow, this is kind of cool. I think I want to check this out, right? But I think it's been phenomenal what you guys have been building there.
Thanks. Yeah. So if you thought of, now we're getting into cold acquisition. Think of like prospecting again. If retention was like Klaviyo for direct mail, you said it, Ron. It's like this is Meta for direct mail. You're building lookalike audiences the same way Meta does, essentially, by looking at your best customers. We'll take a segment of your best customers and we'll find other folks across the country that look like those best customers. And we're not talking like superficial attributes of like, they're a male or female between 25 and 40, and they have this household income. It's like, and they are into fitness, and they buy organic food, and they shop at Whole Foods, and they do like literally hundreds and hundreds of attributes about all these consumers in the US. We can find other people that look like your best customer. And the other thing that we can do for brands like Obvi, who have retail distribution, we can obviously send these cards and find other people, drive them back to the website to purchase. If you're an omni-channel brand and you have retail distribution, we can find those customers, those prospects who look, again, like your best customers. And we also know that, for example, they shop at Walmart multiple times a month, and they're located in proximity to specific Walmart stores that you have distribution in. So that's just another way we use our prospecting tools to be able to drive both D2C conversions and acquire more customers that way, but also even can help brands drive retail velocity by finding prospects that look like their best customers and we know are going to be in the stores that they're sold in.
Nailed it. And you covered a lot of that retail velocity piece, which has just been it's so powerful, especially even if you're in going into stores like GNC or small grocery chains or a vitamin shop, the ability to be able to take people to take specific attributes and then geo-target them, just to, again, get that one in the boost in awareness piece, but also just make sure that you're driving direct sale, because as great of the experience of a direct mail postcard is, what's also really good is it gets to the point quickly, right? Yes, it's novel because it's coming in mail and you're like, whoa, I'm like getting a brand is sending me mail. That's novel. But at the end of the day, we're also getting directly to the point, which is, hey, go buy this. Here's the offer, etc. Going to results with our mail match campaign, we spent $1,500 in sending out 3,000 postcards. Got about 260 orders, and if you see the revenue on the left, it was 19,000. But again, you go back to looking at these ROAS, right? You guys saw the last campaign was at 8x ROAS. This one's at 12x ROAS, and it's incredible to be able to get this type of efficiency. So whether or not to try PostPilot, I think that should probably be out of the question for most people, I hope, watching this, or if you're considering it. I think what's really, really cool though is going back and seeing that like this is not like you would have gotten this revenue by, oh, you could have just ran a Facebook ad and maybe gotten it too, or we could have just done an email or SMS or this. This is revenue that I probably would not have gotten had I not gone through the experience and the process and the product that PostPilot has created. So keep that in mind as you're looking through and getting this test rolling on your end. So let's go a little bit on, this is kind of how we do it. So first of all, we're going to talk through a little bit of the pricing elements. But our postcard costs us about 53 cents, and depending on volume and stuff, it ranges, right? But for us, let's take a 53-cent price point, which is way cheaper than a click on Facebook, right? And the price doesn't change based on the algorithm, right? Michael and his team at PostPilot are not looking at the algorithm today and saying, you know what, today I want to charge $1 for a postcard. And so postage prices versus CPA and CPMs, which are constantly changing, and posted pricing maybe fluctuates a cent in every few years. That in itself is just a phenomenal process to just look at and say, oh, wow, like that is really powerful to be able to functionally understand how consistent direct mail can be versus some of these on-platform ad buying that we're doing. And then, in terms of, if you want to talk a little bit through this, Michael, in terms of, how you guys are working directly with us, the account management, and even going a little bit deeper on pricing, would love for you to jump in there.
Yeah, sure. So as you said, Ron, we like to say it literally takes an act of Congress to change the price of postage. So it's it's great in that respect because, as we've all probably felt, especially in the last 30 to 60 days, where Meta has just been a bit of a dumpster fire and the algo changes for whatever reason, things start to tank. Like, this is a great way to ensure that you just get more predictable revenue and create a more resilient business, especially when those kinds of things happen. It's not going to matter that you're targeting people a week before Black Friday when everybody else is jumping in. It's not going to matter that you're targeting like this highly coveted audience of, wealth, affluent suburban moms or something like that. You don't pay more just because that's who you're targeting. So that's a really nice aspect of the channel generally. And you alluded to this earlier, Ron, like that a lot of people, I think, haven't done direct mail because historically, it's not that it hasn't worked. I mean, it's worked for like 100 years, but it's just been hard. It's just clunky and sucked, basically. It's like find a printer, put a bunch of spreadsheets together, batch and blast to a bunch of people, try and piece together ROAS months later using more spreadsheets. So like the core is like we integrate with Shopify, Klaviyo, like you get a real-time dashboard. It should feel more familiar to a native like digital marketer and D2C brand. And then the other thing is we know what works. We work with thousands of brands. We've done this millions of times. We know what works, and we have a fully managed service. So we want to set you up for success. We want to make sure you are following best practice, and we also want to make it super easy. We know everybody's got a lot on their plate. They don't feel like learning a whole new channel. Their creative team doesn't have time to like start designing also postcards. So we'll do everything for you. Set up strategy, build out all the segments, again, following our best practices. We'll even do the creative. So we have a full in-house team that does the creative for like 95% of our brands. And you can get this done in like, we can go start to finish. We've done it in 24 hours, but usually takes like about a week. And you could be live and launch a campaign, and you're going to start seeing results come in the days afterwards. And again, because we're natively integrated with Shopify, it's a real-time dashboard. So you're not waiting months to figure this out. You're seeing it in a real-time dashboard, just like Meta or just like Klaviyo. And then we'll also help make recommendations for optimizations. We'll help you set up like what is a good place to start for some easy wins, and how do we then build out a program that ultimately becomes, a meaningful piece of revenue for your business. Our goal is to drive an incremental 5 to 10% of revenue for you from this channel. So yeah, we just try and make it super fast, super easy. That's kind of our mantra.
Yeah, I think Michael is being way too modest and humble in how their managed service really works. It's been incredible from day one. I remember when we were like considering it on the fence, like, yeah, I want to test it. Been hearing good things. Been see a lot of people talk about it. To like, I think it was like, by the next day, designs ready to deploy, segments mentioned, and like it was like, oh wow, that's beautiful. And it's not like you're scrapping together some like random renders and just putting together something. These are beautiful designs. All the designs you guys probably saw here are coming from their team. They're helping through it. They're talking about what you need. And then the other part is they care that it works, right? Michael mentioned like, you're here to make sure that this works. They're not here to make a quick $1,000 off of you. They want you to use all their services. So I think that part of when you do get a tool that has a managed service, you get to realize that they want this to work just as much as you do. And it's been an incredible part. And especially for all of us who wear a lot of hats and can't get to everything, adding something new is always daunting. It's always been the biggest stoppage point for us to try new things. So just to relieve one of those fears, this part really helps. And then I think, if you want to touch anything else on the creative end, like I mentioned, the experience and the designers on their team is bar none. And I don't know if you have any other cool examples, Michael, with brands you've worked with, but I know at least brands that we've sent over, they've responded like, hey, I remember one quote, the PostPilot designers are better than our in-house designers. Your team's incredible there. So
I appreciate it. We're really proud of that. And to your point, just to reiterate, like we pound this into the heads of our team all the time. Like, we do not want brands to send out stuff that we don't have high conviction is going to work. It just, to your point, it does us no good to have you send a small campaign, fail, and then be like, direct mail doesn't work. I'm never doing this again. And if somebody asks, I'm going to tell them it doesn't work. Like, that doesn't help us, and it doesn't help you. Our mission is to help our brands succeed with this channel. So we're gonna make sure we do things that we have high conviction in, and tell you if we think what you want to do is not a good idea.
You nailed it. So yeah, what's the best part in all of this? And you didn't even have to do anything to get that feeling. I think is one of the best feelings, where you're like, wait, all that revenue, all that gain, all that ghost revenue that kind of came up and is now, extremely efficient, is done for you. It's something that is extremely novel, yet so ancient in its own way, right? It's direct mail. What we just talked about for the last hour, we're talking about direct mail, sending something in someone's mailbox, right? And I think when you think about that, right? I think that the really, really powerful point in all of this is, and where I'll stop talking and open it up for questions, is start to diversify beyond diversifying just new ad platforms. We're so focused on, what's the next TikTok going to be? What's the next, Facebook going to be? And where should I put my money? People are going to connected TV. Some people are trying out of home advertising. And I have zero problems with any of these platforms, right? And you should be doing all these things. However, there's something that's been working for hundreds of years, like Michael said. And yet we sometimes are trying to overcomplicate how to reach people, how to reach customers. And let's go back to basics, right? Everything cannot always just go to people's phones or their laptops. We're getting into a world where that is becoming too crowded. So get creative. Direct mail and PostPilot have been an incredible diversification tool for us. And again, I hope at the very least you're not considering whether or not you should do it. It's about how big the test should be and what product you're going to start with. So with that being said, want to open some time up for any questions. And Michael, any closing thoughts on your end too?
No, I appreciate the partnership and all of the support. It's been amazing. And I appreciate all the kind words, Ron. I would, to your point, we're not suggesting you replace email or SMS or Facebook or anything like that, but there's a lot of easy wins on the table that you're just not getting right now. And I would challenge everybody on the call to do one thing after, like go to Klaviyo after this, create a segment of all of anyone on your list who's purchased at least one time. See how many people are in that segment. Then go to that, then create a second segment and say how many people have purchased at least one time and have opened or clicked an email in the last 60 days. I'm going to bet that that's less than 10% of your customers. Yep. And that's like a big aha moment, is how many people you're not actively reaching through these digital channels. So I'll stop there. I see some questions coming in, a couple around international. So right now we run our own production too. So we run the production facilities. That's what allows us to do this in real time and at a low cost. So we have them in the US. We just opened one in the UK. We can do retention campaigns in the UK. We don't have acquisition yet live in the UK, but that's coming. And then we're going to be rolling out Canada and Australia soon as well. Another question around how to hit on winning creative. So that's a good question. There's a couple of elements to the question. One is like what format to use. And we typically recommend just a postcard for like retention and retargeting campaigns, because it's a cheaper format and those customers typically just need a nudge. They're familiar with your brand. You just need to get them back engaged and have them remember to take that action. So go with like really the cheapest format of a postcard to do that. As you start to work into acquisition, it's a good idea to start testing some larger formats, because those are people that are not familiar with your brand necessarily. You need to educate them more about your brand and also present a larger assortment of your products so that you can show they have more things to choose from. So typically a bit larger formats for acquisition campaigns. For retention, retargeting, it's really just get them a nudge at the cheapest possible price to get you the best ROI. B2C only. Yeah, so we're like laser focused on D2C and e-com and omni-channel e-com brands. I've been in e-com for 25 years. I've run brands for most of my career. That's who we are. That's what we know. That's why we built the product the way that we did. Yes, we have some folks that use us for B2B use cases, but our focus is really on D2C, and that's why we built the integrations with Shopify, Klaviyo, things like that. We make everything in-house, our own facilities, running 24/7. It's crazy if you saw them, because again, these are not batched campaigns where you're running 100,000 of the same thing at one time. It's literally like every car, all these retention and retargeting campaigns are being triggered in real time, like individually. That's why they're personalized. What would be the con to using EDDM and targeting by household income? So EDDM is it's every door direct mail, and that's literally giving the postal carrier a bunch of your cards and having them put one in every mailbox on their entire route. And if you think about that, yes, it's cheaper to do that, but it's not targeted at all. Like if you're just saying like, I want to put it on a postal route that happens to target like wealthy areas, that's very, very rudimentary targeting. They have no the odds of a high percentage of those people being actually interested in your particular brand, what you're selling, is like very low. The difference in cost does not nearly make, offset the lack of targeting in those things. The EDDM, every door direct mail, is really focused for like restaurants, local service businesses, a dry cleaner, things like that. It's not for brands like this. Can you use for non-ecom, brick and mortar retail? You can. We can do like what we call shop drops, which I talked about for Ron, who has distribution in places like Walmart. We can find lookalikes who are located in proximity to your store. The difference is you're not going to get clean attribution that way. So with D2C, obviously, we're seeing transactions in real time through our Shopify integration, and we're showing you that person got a card, that person came back to make a purchase on this day at this time. With brick and mortar, unless you have direct access to like their POS, you're not going to know specifically who converted. That's the one downside to doing brick and mortar campaigns. Thanks, Devin. Do you all have access to Experian data to help brands better target zips for EDDM? Again, we don't do any EDDM. It's just we don't recommend it for any of the brands that we work with, because we don't work with like local, just like local businesses. But we have enormous amounts of data in our data set that we've aggregated across a ton of different sources. We know we did a campaign recently for a baby brand that targeted expectant mothers in their third trimester of pregnancy. We know that. We know that they're pregnant. We know where in their pregnancy they are. We target people, again, who buy organic meat jerky products from Target. We know people, who drive, what car they drive, what their political beliefs are, like intent data, tons of information. That's what we use to help not only build the prospecting audiences, but we're rolling out new features that just a sneak peek of some things that are coming that are going to even help refine some of these retention audiences even further around different types of customers, and be able to give you customer insight reports by plugging into PostPilot where we can show you a report of like all these attributes that you probably didn't even know about your customers.
Solid. Do we have any other questions that we didn't go over? Doesn't look like it, Michael. I think you hammered through all of them.
Just rolled right through. But yeah, see the pop-up again. We talked about it at the beginning. We set up a page for people on the webinar. Go there if you want to give it a try. One thing I'll mention, like, we do recommend that you're doing at least a few million in revenue, just to make it a more meaningful part of your marketing mix and your revenue. It's not that we have a minimum. The minimum is one card. We have no, like, there's no minimum. It's simply, if you're not doing, at least a few million in revenue, it is probably better to focus on fewer things, like master fewer things, rather than spreading yourself super thin across everything. It's not just direct mail. You shouldn't do like, you shouldn't think about like, I want TikTok and Snapchat and Meta and Instagram and all these things. Like, think about mastering fewer things. And when the time is right, like, we'd love to help you get started. But for those of you who are interested and do want to test, again, it's very easy to test, low lift. You can do it on a very small budget. And if you go to postpilot.com/obvi, we'll take a look, make sure you're a good fit. If we don't think you are, we'll be honest and tell you that. We'll add 1,000 cards to help get you started.
Amazing. Well, thank you guys all for joining. Hopefully this was valuable. And if you guys need access to our examples or the slide deck I went through, happy to share that too. Just find us on LinkedIn or Twitter, or shoot us a message or leave us a comment here and we'll get that to you. Otherwise, definitely take advantage of the offer, and hopefully this was all valuable. Thank you so much all for joining.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you, Ron.
Of course. Take care, guys.